Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, buongiorno, buonasera, dzień dobry, dobry wieczór, jak działa? And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. J. Slater case. Before we get into something about the J. Slater case, just wanted to say that with the three Brighton ladies case, haven't said anything on that for quite a while, mainly because every day I expect Sussex Police to give us some kind of update, either on the investigation connected to the three Brighton ladies, or one of the two men, or is it three men now, that washed ashore or were fished out of the sea in the Brighton area. And as far as I can tell, there are no updates on anything whatsoever. So it seems like Sussex police have become the Guardia Civil of the UK, in that we the public, are just not worth any news, updates, developments, anything at all. I mean, one of the guys washed ashore Rottingdean Beach. Wasn't that someone age 50 from Hertfordshire? And that's it. No name, no explanation, and apparently that is how the public are supposed to be satisfied with police investigations these days. Um, and the other guy, no mention who he was at all. The other guy that was washed up, I mean, pretty close to where Rebecca Walters was washed up, one of the three Brighton ladies. No explanation of who that guy is. So there hasn't been much to update any of you on. If I don't get an update, I can't really comment on it or see how that piece fits into the puzzle. But I will, I think, if I have time tomorrow, I will do something on the Brighton ladies, because there are one or two aspects of it that I still find very, very troublesome. We've looked into the criminal past of the Adetoro family. We've looked into this very odd relationship that exists, or does it exist, between the fourth sister that was in Luton until 2014 and then popped up in Texas. Yeah, it's all very strange. There are bits and pieces that should be commented on. I will try to do that tomorrow. John George case. Well, I showed up for my Zoom call, my live with David from Northern Ireland. He did not show up. I mean, I sent him the details via email. He received that. I mean, the email didn't bounce back, so I think the email address is genuine. Why David decided not to present all his evidence and convince me I got it all wrong, I don't know. So, for the time being, I will give David benefit of the doubt and imagine he got super busy and just couldn't contact me. I suspect he chickened out, but I don't know. So let's see how that one goes. But I think there are one or two things I want to say on the John George case anyway, so I'll probably do a video on that again tomorrow or the next day. So in this one, is back to the Jay Slater case, and I want to examine the phrase tragedy troll, because that is a phrase that Debbie Duncan has said a few times. I don't believe it's her invention. I think MP Sarah Smith first came up with that term, tragedy troll. But it's something that's caught on, and Accident Group in general do love to use that phrase, oh, you're a tragedy troll, or the tragedy trolls are doing this. I just want to have a quick think about what it actually means. The troll bit, I think we all get, or maybe we don't. A definition of a troll, to me, is someone that likes to offend another person online mischievously, knowing they'll get a reaction, but they really don't have anything of substance to say. It's all kind of taking advantage or mocking of another person for its own sake. And in that sense, if that's trolling, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that whether you are trolling as part of the foul play group or you're trolling as part of the accident group, it happens on both sides. I don't see in the accident group a troll free zone. On the contrary, it seems to me not one of the accident group these days wants to talk seriously about the evidence for and against an accident. All they want to do is to troll commenters like myself and others and there's nothing more to it. So, if anything, I would say the balance of the trolling must be in the accident group. Well, what about the tragedy bit? What about the tragedy bit? Now, we are told that, for example, people like me are tragedy trolls because what we do, and this is where Debbie is kind of putting out the scenario that I'm describing here. She says that we pick on any family. If there's a family that's grieving out there, then a tragedy troll will just jump on the tragedy, the death, the disaster, and make fun of it or make the situation worse and mock the family. Apparently, that's what a tragedy troll is. And I find this really curious. The reason I find it curious is because if you follow that logic, if you follow Debbie's logic that a tragedy troll just goes to the latest family, any new family that is suffering a tragedy, and have good fun mocking them, then you would have thought that tragedy trolls like myself, if I'm a tragedy troll, would do that with anyone or to anyone. We wouldn't have a system of discerning which family is worth tragedy trolling and which isn't. So my point is, I think we can dispel this whole stupid notion of tragedy trolling because the vast majority of families that have lost someone are not trolled. They're not even mentioned. We don't even pay attention to any of them. We don't care about them. It's like, yeah, very sorry you've had this tragedy. There's nothing to say here. So my point is, why is it that someone like me could be labeled tragedy troll when 99% of the time where there's a tragedy, there's no trolling involved? I mean, is the argument that Duncan Smith doesn't have enough time in the day to troll all tragedies and all tragedy families? Is that it? He selects one or two and just focuses on them. Doesn't make a lot of sense because a troll is just trying to cause mischief. So the troll would just presumably pick any family and cause mischief and get a kick out of it. Let's have a look at one of the families that no one has ever trolled. Then I'll explain why no one's ever trolled them and establish the fact that a tragedy troll isn't a tragedy troll. But let's have a look at the case. So this one caught my eye. It involved Brighton, I think, another man that drowned, but 2021 is what we're looking at here. Daily Mirror, and where's the date? Where's the date? Where's the date? Well, the date of this article is 13th of June 2026, but the tragedy itself was 2021. So it is the Daily Mirror headline: My dad died in just 54 seconds while trying to save dog in sea. After three waves, we never saw. After three waves, we never saw him again. Gareth Jones, 69, cherished by his family, died trying to save his dog, and now his son is speaking out to try and save others. Sounds like a noble cause. The journalist is Lucy Thornton of the Mirror, and 13th of June, and I won't read the whole thing, but the outline, just to give you a flavour of how this is a tragedy that you would have thought someone like me, if I'm a tragedy troll, would absolutely jump on and start trolling. But I haven't and I won't, and I'll explain why. A son whose dad drowned in 54 seconds while trying to save the family dog has backed the Mirror's Save Lives for Sam campaign. Robbie Jones said it took less than a minute for his dad, Gareth Jones, 69, to drown after going into the sea off Hove, East Sussex, to save the family's young cockapoo, Connie. Since the tragedy, his son has become a water safety advocate, visiting schools to spread the message, and is speaking out in support of the Mirror's Save Lives for Sam campaign. So far, so good, in the sense I'm 100% behind Robbie Jones and the Mirror's Save Lives for Sam campaign, trying to avoid tragedies at sea like this. Older man jumps in the sea to save a dog and loses his life. I am backing this 100%. I've got nothing to say that would be negative against this whatsoever. Which is odd. Which is odd. You'd have thought a tragedy troll would immediately note down the guy's name, Robbie Jones, and start firing off an email or two saying how ridiculous he is. But no, so I guess tragedy trolls are discerning to a certain extent. He said, I guess this is Robbie Jones, he said, I don't want another family to suffer with the grief burden. because it's not just a loss you're coming to terms with. The harder bit is how it happened. I still can't believe that happened to my dad. I've come to terms with the fact he's not going to come walking through the door, but how he died, that's what I grapple with still. How it happened and how quickly it happened. And Robbie, now aged 30, knows exactly what happened and how it happened because he was allowed to watch CCTV of the tragedy by police. This bit is interesting if I break aside because it is obvious that if Robbie watched CCTV of his own father's death, drowning just off the coast in Hove there, that implies there should be CCTV of the three Brighton ladies walking to the sea. Why is it that Hove has CCTV that captures this, the drowning father of Robbie, but Brighton doesn't have the CCTV that captures the three ladies walking into the sea? That is odd. Anyway, he said, oddly, it was the best experience of the whole thing. Have I read that right? Watching the CCTV of his dad dying was the best experience of the whole thing because I was dealing with facts and evidence, okay? The reality. For me personally, it was better than not knowing I saw my dad drown and the dog, Robbie explained, adding, that was my choice. I needed to. He described how his dad Gareth, the former head of the BBC's HR department, was on the beach with a tennis ball and a thrower in January 2021 at the height of lockdown. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was the first ball that he threw. The ball had a few bad bounces, or the wind took it. He didn't purposely throw the ball into the sea, but that's where it ended up. The dog went tearing into the water to get the ball straight away. The dog had no chance. As soon as she entered, you see a fluffy thing, and you never saw her again. My dad went in almost immediately, and as soon as he went in, it was the drop of the pebbles more than anything that took him. Robbie explained the family later returned to the beach 24 hours after he went missing and saw there was a blind drop and it was very deep, about 7 feet. He obviously went into the water thinking he could just pull the dog out, but not knowing the drop was so huge, Robbie explained. As soon as he entered, you could see him trying to get back out again. He knew he wasn't going to make it. He turns around almost instantly and scrambles to try to get out. Gareth had been walking his dog very near the private beach called Millionaire's Row in Brighton, where Zoe Ball had a home. He said, there were two waves that just hit him on the right shoulder, and then a third wave, and you never see him again. The third wave fizzed off his shoulder like a champagne bottle. The whole CCTV video was 54 seconds, and then you never see him again. By the way, I'll put the link in the description to the video because there's some interesting stats that also go with this. It says something along the lines of 85% of victims are male, those that are reported drowned in Great Britain. 85% male, apparently. So you can read this at your leisure. Now, my point with all this is that I can't imagine anyone would ever tragedy troll this family. I just can't imagine it. To me, there is nothing in this story that is untoward or anything to question or anything to sneer at or anything to mock. It's just a very straightforward story. I see no reason to doubt the word of anyone in this. We've got we've got the son who says he has seen the CCTV coverage of his own dad drowning. Can you believe it? And the dog drowning. And that has brought reality home to him. And the family are now living with that tragedy. End of story in many regards. Yes, Robbie has to live with this forever. But Wax, Jan, myself, there's no Marvin, whoever it is, whatever the content creator is that likes to analyze tragedies that don't add up. None of us, I don't think, would ever write or say anything about the story I've just brought to you because it's all explicable. It all makes sense. It's what one would expect. So what I've tried to show is that a tragedy troll isn't someone that just picks on a poor family that suffered a tragedy for fun. Obviously not. Otherwise, some tragedy troll out there would be picking on these types of families. It seems to me the definition of tragedy troll is actually a person who looks at a case, finds it very suspicious, or they can't make sense out of it. They then ask questions, and they ask an audience, the public, followers, subscribers, commenters, contributors, to give feedback, to see if the group as a whole can make sense of it. That's apparently what a tragedy troll is. Now, if there is any trolling involved, I can say from my perspective, if someone trolls me, I'm happy to troll back. Or if someone says something incredibly stupid and it is aimed in my direction. I'm thinking of Chris Pennington and all of this nonsense. Oh, I only followed the facts. All of those conspiracy theorists out there don't know what they're talking about. Well, I'm going to react to that. I may well troll that idiot back and say, okay, Einstein, you followed the facts. You tell me the facts you followed, and then we'll have a debate about it. Yeah, if that's trolling, I'm well into that. No problem. But it's only as a reaction to someone that starts mocking me in the first place. That's just how it works. But it's not any tragedy. In the Jay Slater case, Brighton Ladies case, John George case, for me, it's a tragedy that doesn't add up as per the narrative we've been told, either by the family, either by the authorities, either by the media, either by the coroner in the Jay Slater case. It's when, if you like, the establishment can't fully explain what the hell was going on to the satisfaction of a naturally curious person, that I am more than willing to get involved. But it's not because it's a tragedy, it's because it doesn't make sense. Like I said, this tragedy I just read about makes perfect sense. No need to leave a comment about anything to anyone. There is no tragedy trolling where the tragedy makes sense. Right, we'll leave it there. What is a tragedy troll? Nothing more than a person curious to know the truth about a death that seems very, very suspicious. In other words, a curious person who wants to look into the details of something. Sarah Smith, Debbie Duncan. That's what a tragedy troll really is. Hasta luego, adios, hasta la vista. See you next time.